What's up, YouTube? So it's finally time to get around to getting the 5-speed put in. So I figured real quick we'd cover all the parts that I'm using. I did not do a kit from any one of the vendors that had one available because there's things here and there I didn't like, and I just decided to do it myself. It'd be more fun. So first off, I'm retaining the factory bell housing, the 4-speed top loader car bell housing. So this is not the truck style that's deeper. This is the aluminum car bell housing. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm keeping the mechanical clutch. And I've seen videos of people like the Craig 909 on YouTube put a 5-speed in his F100. And he used the aftermarket bell housing and had issues with just different pieces and parts. A big thing with the TKX transmission is the crankshaft offset with the bore of the bell housing. I've seen a lot of people where that's really far out. So between that, the issues with retaining the mechanical clutch and the deeper bell housing, I decided to use the factory bell housing with a spacer, which is already installed on the transmission. So I can't show you that here, but going with that, opted for a 17-pound, 157 tooth flywheel from a Claude. Same with their clutch and their clutch kit. And here's the part number of the clutch kit. This is something that, like, it's not a common stocked item at Summit. I believe the gentleman told me it's rated to 500 horsepower, 600 foot-pounds of torque, which should be pretty good considering I'm not drag racing this truck. It's going to be primarily for autocross. The big thing about this clutch kit is, so it has the diaphragm style updated Mustang clutch. And it has the throwout bearing that's designed to mate to the original clutch fork that slips on, slips over, and locks down that way. It's also greasable, which is pretty cool. But yeah, this is, as far as I know, if you're going to install like a TKX, TKO, something along those lines, and you want to retain this setup, you're going to have to go with something like this kit in order to get, the right throwout bearing, all the right clutch pieces and parts. It comes with the bronze bushing for the input shaft, and then the clutch disc itself, which I was kind of hoping to not have a sprung hub, but that wasn't an option with this kit, so I went with this. Their stuff's been pretty good. I've used it in the past, never had any issues with it. One of the biggest reasons I decided to do this not as a kit was because I wanted to kind of pick the parts that were going in. So again, there's the part number for that clutch kit if you want to reach out to them. Like I said, I ordered it direct from them. Did take about 2 weeks to get, so if time is not on your side, you may want to get that in advance. This is the part number for the output shaft, because you'll have to get, not output shaft, but output yoke, slip yoke, because you'll have to get a new one to mate to the transmission, because the factory Ford one will not. So I did that, and then these are the Spicer U-joints. These are the ungreasable versions. They're a little bit stronger. At this time, I didn't go to a 1350 size U-joint because I'm going to be shortening my own drive shaft, and I'm not done with the rear end. I'm not sure that I'm going to, once the quick change, or not the quick change, but the new housing comes in, I'll probably upgrade then to a 1350 yoke on the rear end, and then the 1350 output shaft, or tail shaft. But yeah, so I'm gonna post up a video of how to zero this bell housing, or how to measure the clutch throughout as well. It'll be part of this video here a little bit later on, but we're gonna go ahead and get started getting some of these pieces and parts installed.
All right, so we're back. We got the flywheel installed, torqued 85 foot-pounds on the flywheel bolts. Actually did it twice because I forgot to put the spacer plate in the first time. So yeah, I'm an idiot. And then once the flywheel is installed and torqued down, you got to clean the surface because they put a protectant on it, right? So that protectant is like a anti-rust protectant or whatever, so I usually just take it and wipe it all down good. Make sure that you get all that stuff off of it because that's not good on your new clutch. It causes braking issues, among other things. So I usually wipe it down 2 or 3 times and until the blue shot pals are coming back pretty clean. And then after that, you're good to go, and we'll get the clutch installed.
All right, and so same rules apply to the pressure plate. And I only wiped down half of it so you can kind of see the difference between what it's like cleaned off and what it's like coming out of the factory. And you know, it's fairly clean. That's got a bunch of gunk all over it. So just use the same stuff and wipe that down. And then when you get ready to install the clutch, like these are cheap insurance. You know, you've got to use, I like to use new bolts on the clutch. On these, I don't put any Loctite on the flywheel bolts. I do put a little bit of red Loctite on these because these don't torque nearly as high and you don't want them backing out. So we'll get this cleaned up and get on to installing it.
All right, so I got the clutch disc up on the alignment tool and I have the pressure plate hanging. And I say hanging because on a diaphragm style clutch, which is what as far as I understand, you have to use with the TKX, there's dowel pins, and you absolutely have to have those dowel pins in, and this will actually support the pressure plate while you're installing everything. And it's like, from what the clutch manufacturer told me, it's absolutely required with the style of clutch. So this flywheel that I ordered direct from them, or ordered the same manufacturer that makes the clutches, makes the flywheel, came with the dowel pins. Some aftermarket flywheels do not come with the dowel pins. This clutch also requires the use of the 8.8 millimeter bolts, or the 8 millimeter bolts, to install the pressure plate. So if you have standard, I think 5/16 bolts, they will not work with this flywheel, this clutch, this setup. So make sure of that. As you start to snug this down, so yes, as an alignment tool, it also allows, I think you can probably see, some play in the disc. So as you start to snug this down, just make sure that that continues to slide in and out. If that gets bound up, loosen it up and start over, because that means your clutch disc is shifted down or up or some direction. When you go to install the transmission, it's going to be very hard to get the input shaft in there. Obviously, once you disengage the clutch the first time, it's going to self-align because it'll be riding on the input shaft of the transmission. But during the installation procedure, you need to make sure that that continues to move freely, because if that ever gets bound, your whole clutch assembly is going to be bound up and make it difficult to install the trans. Also on these, you know, make sure you're following, especially with ARP hardware, make sure you're following the manufacturer's torque spec, not the manuals. I don't remember what the manual spec is on these, but on the 8 millimeter bolts, it's 25 foot-pounds, torqued in like a star shape, right? Don't just like hit these two, then these two, then these two, and go around. You need to go crisscross like you would if you were tightening up lug nuts on a car. That'll help the clutch plate torque down evenly and should help prevent this from shifting. And I creep up on it, like I go a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, until I'm finally what I think is about there, and then do the final torque. So I just don't torque one, then the next, then the next. I kind of bring them all up evenly. So I'll get this torqued on, we'll get on to installing the bell housing. All right, so here we are, all torqued down, 25 foot-pounds on all bolts. I just wanted to show you at the end, so once it's all torqued down, let's see, now it's a little tight at the end, but that is because this plastic alignment tool is a little bit mushroomed at the end of it. But otherwise, it's, once you get past the mushroom part, it goes right in and moves in and out just fine. So that's what you want to see when you're done installing your clutch disc and everything's torqued. All right, guys, so here is how you check the run out of your bell housing. So you're gonna pick like one spot, like I picked here, and zeroed the dial indicator, right? And then I rotated it 90 degrees and checked that spot up here, sorry. And that was -3. And then I went another 90 degrees and it was +1. And then at the bottom it's +3 and then back to 0. So that tells you where your alignment bore or shoulder is going to go in relationship to the center line of your crankshaft. And with the TKX, you're allowed 5 thou deflection, basically, of the input shaft to be in warranty. So roughly left to right, I'm 1/1000ths, and top to bottom, since I'm -3 at the top and +3 at the bottom, that's going to shift it 3/1000ths up, which is in the 5/1000 spec. So yeah, I'm good. Should be a direct bolt on, and there's the dial indicator to kind of give you an idea of what kind of range. Sorry for the poor lighting, but it is under the truck. But anyway, this has to be done to retain your TKX warranty on your transmission. Warranties are cool, so do this step, make sure it fits. If you have to use the adapter, if you didn't go with the aftermarket bell housing that allows for the additional length of the input shaft, bolt and torque your adapter plate on first, and then check that. Don't assume that just because the register in the bell housing is right doesn't mean that this plate is going to be exactly dead center with that register. I mean, they could, during the machining process of mass-produced parts, these can get off a few thousandths here and there. I went this route because I felt like the factory bell housing was going to be more close to center than what some of the aftermarket stuff is. And I don't know, I don't have an aftermarket one to compare to, but from some of the reading I've done online, I saw where some of those were as much as like 20 thou out. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Plus, I'm stubborn, and like I said, I'm going to retain the mechanical clutch setup. So, already having this, the clutch fork and everything was, put me a step ahead. So, yeah, that's kind of the overall of how this works. You can find a lot more information on like Modern Driveline and stuff like that about how to actually do the math to get the adjustable dowels or the offset dowel pins for your bell housing. If you need to scoot your bell housing one, north, south, east, or west, they make and sell adjustable dowel pins that will shift that bell housing to be more in line with what you need. So, do the math, or take the measurements, do the math. If you need them, order them, put them in. That way you don't have, issues with alignment. There's some other things that go along with that as well, just beyond the warranty. Some have said, the reduced friction is more horsepower, longer bearing life, all the fun things that go along with that. So, yeah, there you go. If you guys have any questions, like I said, post them in the comments or check out Modern Driveline for that part.
All right, so here we are. Let's get on to some good stuff. So the first thing we need to do, obviously the old shifter location is not going to work, which means I'm going to have to buy a new carpet, patch the hole in the floor. There is a top shift option that will move the shifter up to here, but it requires permanent modification to the transmission, and also, from what I'm told by Silver Sport, will void the factory Tremec warranty. So not a good option. So we're going to measure from here to here, determine where to put the hole for the shifter to come through, and cut it in the floor because we have to do that before we can put the transmission in. So let's get that.
All right, so here is the new hole where we're going to have to cut for the shifter, and you can see how close it is to the old one, but we'll patch this floor back together once we're done. To add some support, obviously, and this is moving the shifter. The original shifter was centered about right here, so it's about it's a good distance back. This adapter plate is pushing it back about that much, but unfortunately, there's nothing I can do until somebody comes out with a short shaft for the TKX, and nobody has it yet. Also, proactively, when you're getting it right before you install this, make sure you lubricate your throwout bearing. There is a groove in there. You can put a little bit of grease in it, and that'll help it slide better on the input shaft or the bearing retainer of the transmission. So, sorry, my TV's a little bit loud, but yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and See if we can get this floor cut and start getting this transmission mounted. Oh well, yeah, that's the stuff right there that everybody wants to do to their truck. It's cut a giant hole next to another giant hole. So yeah, that'll be some fun to patch, but not bad. And as I say, if I just don't think moving the shifter to here is worth avoiding the warranty on the transmission. And that's what I would have gained by using the top shift conversion. Using my existing Hurst shifter, which I don't currently see in the truck, I think we're going to clear the bench seat just fine. And this bench seat is short-lived anyway. It's going to get racing seats this summer, so at that point I probably will put a different shifter on it altogether. So, but for now, we're clearanced, hopefully, if I can measure, clearanced enough for the shifter to come through the floor when we raise the transmission. So let's see about getting it in. All right, well, so it's in there. It is bigger and a more awkward install than what I thought it would be. But so there's a couple things that I'm a little concerned with right off the bat. There is like zero clearance right now. And I haven't measured the driveline angle yet. I have to look up the spec of what it's supposed to be. So I need to do that, see what the book says. Mounts wise, I've got to figure out a mount and obviously a cross member. I think I'm going to try and utilize the old cross member and a block here to take up any space, because I believe this mount's taller than the old mount was. So I'm gonna probably do that in a second part of the video. I will show you real quick the shifter location. So we were pretty accurate with our measurement. And with this stick shifter, I don't touch the bench seat currently. And that tells me that when I put in racing seats, I'll be just as good off. Throw is pretty good. It's, it's a factory TKX shifter, right? And so they're not the shortest of throw, but it is a pretty good shifter. I mean, it's more positive than the top loader was, I'll give it that. I may end up having to cut all this floor out and go with the tunnel option. I think the Craig had to do that on his as well. Yes, finally we upgraded to a 5-speed shift knob. I think the Craig had to do that with his TKO, and I was hoping to avoid it if possible with the TKX, but I don't think it's going to be an option. Shift boots, I'm not entirely certain yet. I have one from RHS, I think, that's a cloth boot that has a plate that screws down and the boot snaps around. But I think I want to run a rubber one to help kind of seal out the exterior from the interior. But I don't know, at this point, I think, like I said, I'm going to call this video done for today. We'll probably start part 2 of trying to figure out the transmission cross member and get all that situated, get the driveline angle measured, and all that fun stuff. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Unfortunately, I would have liked to have shown more of the video of the actual transmission install, but I had done it by myself, and unlike the top loader, this transmission does not have a flat bottom at all. In any way, it does not balance well. So I did it with a floor jack. I don't have a transmission jack. I probably should have picked one up, but I didn't. At any rate, that is one of the things that makes it very difficult to get installed by yourself without a transmission jack. So if you're doing this alone, Harbor Freight, I think, has one for like 120 bucks that would probably work very well for this based off the rounded bottom of the case. Here's the spacer installed. The bolts that come with the spacer kit weren't quite long enough, so I used some little bit longer hardware to give me a better engagement. There's the drain plug and fill plug, so it'll be a pump to fill. But other than that, yeah, I'm liking it so far. I did end up going with the 327 first and the 0.72 overdrive. I don't want this. I don't need this truck to be able to cruise 90 mile an hour down the interstate. Like I said, hopefully it's going to get some autocross time on it. And so I always felt like even with the wide ratio top loader, first gear was a little too tall. Hopefully this deepens it up and gets it off the line a little bit quicker. But yeah, like I said, thanks again for watching. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'll answer them best I can. Have a good evening.